Your company recently created an Azure subscription. You have been tasked with make sure that a specified user is able to implement Azure Active Directory, Privileged Identity Management (PIM). The answer is the global administrator role. Next question. Your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain named leylandindustries.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory tenant with the same name, and they have been tasked with integrating Active Directory and Azure Active Directory tenant. You intend to deploy Azure Active Directory Connect. Your strategy for the integration must make sure the password policies and user logon limitations affect as user accounts that are synced to the Azure Active tenant tenant and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. The solution they are given is you recommended to use a pass-through authentication and seamless SSO with the password hash synchronization. Does this solution meet the requirement? No. Next question. Your company has an Active Directory first with a single domain named as leylandindustries.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory with the same name. You have been tasked with integrating Azure Active Directory and Azure Active Directory tenant. You intended to deploy Azure Active Directory Connect. Your strategy for the integration must make sure that the password policies and user logon limitations affect user accounts that are synced to the user Active Directory tenant and that are the amount of necessary servers are reduced. The solution they are giving this time is you recommend the use of federation with the Active Directory Federation Services ADFS. Active Directory Federation Services ADFS. Does the solution meet the goal? No. The same question they are now this time they are giving solution related to you recommend use of password hash synchronization and seamless SSO. So this meet the solution they are asking for. Yes, this meet the solution because password synchronization requires least effort according to deployment, maintenance, and infrastructure. The level of effort typically applies to organizations that only need the users to log on into Office 365. Your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain name in leylandindustries.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory tenant with the same name. After syncing all on-premises identities to the Azure Active Directory, you are informed that users with a given name attribute starting with LAB must be allowed to sync to Azure Active Directory. Which of the following actions should you take? So answer is you should take make sure of synchronization rules editor to create an attribute based filtering rule. You should make use of synchronization rules editor to create an attribute based filtering rule for this purpose. Sixth bit, you have been tasked with applying conditional access policies for your company's current Azure Active Directory with the process involving accessing the risk events and risk levels. Which of the following is the risk level that should be configured for the users that have leaked credentials, which is high? Answer is high. There are six types of events categorized into three levels: risk, high, medium, and low. Next question. You have been tasked with applying conditional access policies for your company is the current Azure Active Directory. The process involves accessing the risk events and the risk levels. Which of the following risk levels should be configured for the sign-ins that originate from IP addresses with the DBS activities, which is medium? Next question: if you have if you have been tasked with configuring an access review, which you plan to assign to a new collection of reviews, you also have to make sure that the reviews can be reviewed by the resource owners. You should start by creating an access review program and access review control. You now need to configure the reviewers. Which of the following should you set reviewers to? Answer is group owners. Next question. Your company recently created an Azure subscription. You have subsequently been tasked with making sure that you are able to secure Azure Active Directory roles by making use of Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management (PIM). Which of the following actions should you take first? So the answer is you should consent to Azure Active Directory AD Privileged Identity Management (PIM). B. Next question. You need to consider the underlying segment to establish whether it is accurate. You have been tested. You have been tasked with creating a different subscription for each of your company divisions. However, the subscription will be linked to single Azure Active Directory tenant. You want to make sure that each subscription has an identical role assignments. You make use of Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management PIM. Select no adjustment required if underline segment is accurate. If underline segment is inaccurate, select the accurate option. So the answer is no adjustment needed. So the underline segment is accurate. Azure Privileged Service allows the Azure Privileged Role Administration to make permanent admin role assignments. Next question. Your company has an Azure Container Registry. You have been tasked with assigning user a role that allows for the uploading of images to the Azure Container Registry. The role assigner should not be require more privileges than necessary. Which of the following role should you assign? The option is air push. Air push is the thing answer here. Next question. Your company has an Azure Container Registry. You have been tasked with assigning a role to a user, a role that allows for downloading images from the Azure Container Registry. The role assigned should not require more privileges than necessary. Which of the following role should you assign? The option is reader. A reader role we can assign for this purpose. Next question. The question is included in a number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, each question has a distinctive result established if the solution satisfies the requirement. Your company's Azure subscription includes a virtual network that has a single subnet configured. You have created a service endpoint for the subnet, which includes an Azure virtual machine that has Ubuntu Server 18.04 installed. You are preparing to deploy a Docker container to the Azure machine. You need to make sure that the containers can access Azure storage resources and Azure SQL database via a service endpoint. You need to perform a task on the Azure machine prior to the deploying containers solution they are giving. You can create an application security group. Does this meet the requirement? No. The option is no. Same question they are giving solution this time is you can create AKS ingress controller. So this made the solution which you are looking for. No. For the same thing they gave a solution this time is you can install the container network interface CNI plugin. Does this meet the goal? Yes. You can install container network interface CNI plugin for this purpose that can install Azure virtual machines. The plugin supports both Linux and Windows platform. The plugin assigns IP address to the virtual network to the containers brought up in the virtual machine, attaching them to the virtual network and connecting them directly to the other containers and the virtual network resources. The plugin rely on the overlay network route for connectivity and provides the same performance on virtual machines. Here the picture shows this Azure virtual network capability to ports. Next question. You make use of Azure Resources templates to deploy Azure virtual machines. You have been tasked with making sure that the Windows features that are not in use are automatically inactivated when instances of virtual machines are provisioned. Which of the following actions should you take? The option is B. You must make use of Azure Automation State Configuration to manage Azure VMs, both Classic and Azure Resource Manager, on-premises VMs, Linux machines, AWS VMs, and on-premises virtual machines, etc. Next question. Your company is Azure subscription Windows servers 2016 Azure virtual machines. You are informed that every virtual machine should have a custom anti-malware virtual machine extension installed. You are writing the necessary code for the policy that will help you to achieve this. Which of the following is an effect that must be included in your code? So deploy if not exist should be executes a template deployment when the condition is met. So deploy if not exist is the thing which we have to include in your code. Next question. Your company makes use of Azure Active Directory in a hybrid configuration. All users are making use of hybrid Azure AD joined Windows 10 computers. You manage an Azure SQL database that allows for Azure ID authentication. You need to make sure that the database deployers are able to connect the SQL database via Microsoft SQL Management Studio. You also need to make sure the developers use their on-premises Active Directory account for authentication. Your strategy should also allow for authentication prompts to be kept in minimum. Which of the following authentication method for the deployed should you use? So the option is Azure Active Azure Directory, Azure Active Directory Integrated Authentication. Active Directory Integrated Authentication, which helps for this purpose. Like it is an initial Azure Active Directory managed domain because it can be an on-premises and Azure Active Directory domain servers that are federated with the Azure Active Directory. So this is used for that purpose. Next question. You have been tasked with enabling advanced threat protection for the Azure SQL database server. Advanced threat protection must be configured to identify all types of threat protection. Which of the following will happen if when the faulty SQL statement is generated in a database by an application? So in this scenario, you can have a vulnerability to SQL injection alert is triggered. A vulnerability to SQL injection alert is triggered, then your problem will be solved. So the next question, the solution is included in number of questions that decreases this identical setup. However, every question has a distinctive result to establish if the solution satisfies the requirements. Here you will give a problem statement, then they will give the solution. If the statement is true, then you can say yes, otherwise no. So his solution is a statement is you are in the process of creating an Azure Kubernetes service, AKS cluster. The Azure Kubernetes Service AKS cluster must be able to connect to Azure Container Registry. You want to make sure that Azure Kubernetes Service AKS cluster authenticates to the Azure Container Registry by making use of auto-generated service principle. So this is the statement. The solution they are giving is you can create an Azure Active Directory role assignment. So this meet the solution they are looking for. Yes, that meet the solution. When you create AKS cluster, Azure also creates a service principal to support cluster operabilities with the other Azure services. We can use this auto-generated service principal for authentication with an ACR, then ACR registry, then you to do so, you need to create an Azure Active Directory load assignment that grants the cluster services principal access to the container registry. Next question. Your company has an Azure subscription that includes two virtual machines named as Vir Mac 1 and Vir Mac 2, which both of they have the status of stopped, that is deallocated. The virtual machine belong to the different resource groups named as risk 1, risk group 1 and risk group 2. You can also create a two Azure policies that are both configured with virtual machine resource type. The policy configured for resource group has a policy definition of not allowed resource group types, while the policy configured for risk group 2 has a policy definition of allowed resource types. Then you then create a read-only resource block for var mac 1 as well as read-only resource log for risk group 2. Which of the following is true with regarding to the scenario? Choose all the options that apply for. So this is a multiple option type of question. You can select two options or not a single option. Here you can, what you can do means you will not be able to start a VR Mac 1 because that is only read only resource group. Next option is you will be able to create a virtual machine and resource group 2. So you can create a virtual machine in the resource group too, but you will not be able to start VR Mac 1. So next question. You have been tasked with delegate administration service to a company Azure Key Vault. You have to be make sure that the specific user can set advanced access policies for the Key Vault. You also have to make sure that the access is assigned based on the principle of least privilege. Which of the following options should you use to achieve your goal? So for this purpose, you can have this RBAC. For this purpose, RBAC is used. The next question, you have been tasked to delegate the administrative access to your company Azure Key Vault. You have to make sure that the specific user is able to add and delete the certificates in the Key Vault. You also make sure that the access is assigned based upon the principle of least privilege. Which of the following options should you choose to achieve this goal? Then this time you have to go for a Key Vault access policy for this purpose. Next question. You have an Azure virtual machine that runs on Windows Server R2. You plan to deploy and configure Azure Key Vault and enable Azure Disk Encryption for the virtual machine. Which of the following is true with regard to the Azure Disk Encryption for a Windows VM? It is supposed to the standard tier VMs. That is the correct option. Next, you have an Azure virtual machine that runs on Ubuntu 16.04 daily LTS. You plan to deploy and configure an Azure Key Vault and enable Azure Risk Encryption for the Azure VM. Which of the following is true regarding to the Azure Disk Encryption for Linux VM? It is not supported for basic tier VMs. It is not supported for basic tier VMs. Next question. You need to consider the underlying segment to establish whether it is accurate. You have been configured to an Azure Kubernetes service cluster in your testing environment. You are currently preparing to deploy an Azure cluster to the production environment. After disabling the HTTPS application routing, you want to replace it with the application routing solution that allows for reverse reserve proxy and LTS termination for AKS services via a solitary IP address. You must create an AKS ingress controller. Select no adjustment required if the underlying segment is accurate. If the underlying segment is inaccurate, select the appropriate option. So the answer is no adjustment needed. The statement they are giving is perfectly right. So no option is ingress control is a piece of software that provides a reserve proxy and a configurable traffic routing and TLS termination for Kubernetes service. Next question. You want to gather logs from large number of servers 2016 computers from Azure Log Analytics. You are configuring an Azure Resource Manager template to deploy Microsoft monitoring agent to all the servers automatically. Which of the following should be included in the template? Choose that apply. So to what should be included in your template means workspace ID should be included, and also this workspace key should be included. Workspace ID and workspace key should be included in your template. Next question. The question is included a number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, each question has a distinct result established if the solution satisfies the requirement. Your company has an Azure subscription linked to your Azure Active Directory tenant. As a global administration for the tenant, as part of your responsibility involves the managing Azure Security Center settings. You are currently preparing to create a custom sensitivity label solution they are giving you. You can start by altering the pricing tier of the security center. Thus, has meet the goal they are looking for. This solution meet the required goal they are looking for. The option is S. No. No, we can't do this thing by altering the pricing level with the security center. Next question. The solution, your company has an Azure subscription linked to the same question they are asking for, but this time they are giving a solution like you can start by integrating Security Center and Microsoft Cloud App Security. Does this meet the requirement they are looking for? No. So the option is no. Answer B. Next, they are giving solution like you can start by creating a custom sensitive information type. Yes, of course, they're asking for custom security level label only. Then you can create a custom sensitive information type. Then this is meet the requirement goal they are looking for.